Hey everybody, once again, it's me, Lila, Cat, and we finally made it to Stings. We're almost done. Oh my goodness. Oh, it feels so good. So, this is confirmed fuckery, anecdote number 10, stings. Are you unaware of how ridiculous you are, or the fuck you don't know you're making a fool of yourself? So, I've divided these into a total of 15 bite-sized chunks, each of them approximately 5 pages long. So, basically, I just scroll down 5 pages and then do the page break at like the end of whatever that last story was. Some of these were more than 5 pages. I think there's like three of them that the whole story itself was actually pretty long-winded. Um, and so those obviously are going to be one-offs, but there's one that, oh man, that one's a good time. Like there's some, even just scrolling through, perusing just real briefly, like there's some greatest hits in this little compilation here. So I'm anticipating maybe what 5 pages of this or whatever is maybe about 10, 15 minutes long. That's kind of what I was guessing, but I guess we'll find out. I'm gonna just have to do it. So, without further ado, this is sting number one. So the final anecdote, is going to be a lot of fun. This is the icing on the salt cake. These are in no particular order, and I would prefer that you follow each one with an imaginary sting, the that follows a snarky joke. These are the minor pervasive ticks that deserve an honorable mention as they provide at least tangential support for other points made in this case study, but didn't necessarily fit in anywhere else. So when I'm saying that, I'm pretty sure that I'm talking about like actually writing the book about with the diagnostic criteria framework. So it's like here's all these other additional weird things that he would do or like weird incidents that happened that didn't necessarily align like completely well with any of the diagnostic criteria. Um, and it also is going to touch like things that I have actually mentioned though since going through the journals instead of the book. So like I said, just keep in mind that that statement is referring to the diagnostic criteria, not everything that was already in the journals and stuff like that. He gets up from his nap, puts his outside clothes back on, and strolls into the living area, muttering something about time to go to the store as he starts fumbling with the change on his desk. So, like, I mean, he would wear like jeans when he'd go outside to do stuff, but when he came back to the apartment, he would change into like shorts or sweatpants, right? So that's, but I mean, they're not like some weird like changing into pajamas or anything. Like, I feel like most people are kind of like that, but just in case you were envisioning something weird, it's like no normal stuff. While he was sleeping, I went through the Safeway app looking at all of the offers. I patiently wait as he fucks around for him to come to me for the list before I start to explain things. I speak slowly as he looks straight at me. Oh my God, I remember this one. Okay, and this is funny because I feel like this whole like Safeway list was actually just one of the last of the journals. So this is kind of a fresh on the mind, right? I added a reward coupon for $7 off of a $7 meat department purchase. So get at least $7 worth of hamburgers so it's free. I start. Why would it be free? He says with an irritated, bewildered look on his face. Wait, so then he's like, why would it be free? You know what, motherfucker? You just go ahead and tell me when you're ready to pay attention. Sounds like there's children afoot. Congrats on the win.
Oh, okay.
Eagles fan in her Cox jersey going to work today. Good for her. Represent. All right. Anyway, so now that the littles have passed by. You know what, motherfucker? You just go ahead and tell me when you're ready to pay attention. I started over, then proceeded to describe the coupons for the other items on the list, including a buy one, get one free offer on a particular brand of bacon. He came home with two $7 packages of hamburger and no bacon. So, like when Safeway has one of those rewards programs where, like, for every dollar you spend, you get a point and whatever. And then when you rack up certain amounts of points, you can trade them in for coupons and deals and stuff. So we had enough points to trade for the $7 off of a $7 purchase in the meat department. So we were gonna have, I think, like bacon cheeseburgers or something that night for dinner because I had this coupon. And then there was also just a regular store coupon for buy one get one free for like the 1 pound packages of some particular bacon, right? Like the Hormel Black Label bacon or like whatever, right? So the list was get a $7, at least a $7 package of hamburgers so that it's $7 off because I traded in rewards points for this coupon. Then get two packages of the bacon instead of just one because it is buy one, get one free. He got aggravated not understanding why it would be $7 off, even though I started with explaining why it would be $7 off. And now this is the funny thing. In the book, there is a particular point that I make about um, that whenever I would do the shopping at Safeway and whatever, especially when I was still working there, sometimes I would just pick the stuff up for dinner and bring it home, or whatever. And he would look and he'd be like, they don't give me deals like that. Like he couldn't save any money. It's like, because you just go over there and buy whatever you want. I look through what's on sale and then plan what to buy based on what's cheap. That's why you don't get good prices for the stuff you buy. He was incapable of understanding this, seemingly incapable of understanding any of this, anything that came down. And I feel like there's a lot of talk nowadays, it seems, about like weaponized incompetence, but you can't be weaponizing your incompetence when you then insist on being the person who physically goes and does the grocery shopping and then turn around and complain that you don't save any money when you do the grocery shopping. Like, it's not weaponized incompetence, it's just incompetence and just big-headed asshole fuckery, right? It's not it none of this jives, right? But anyway, like I said, I remember that he came home with two because hamburger here typically even at Safeway is like around what like 6.90 like back then was like about 5.99 or 6.99 a pound. So it was like you need to, look at the prices on the hamburger and actually pick up a package that's going to be $7, right? So he came home with two packages of hamburger that were at least $7 and no bacon. And then when I say it's like, where's the bacon? And he's like, oh, like they were all sold out. But the thing is like, if all of the buy one, get one free bacon was gone, we still needed a pound of bacon. So he should have just bought something else, right? It's like, okay, so that one was gone, but we were getting bacon because we needed it any fucking way. So why didn't you buy it? Right. And so, like I said, it's like I'm a cultured person. I watch TV and movies and go online and do things on social media. I'm familiar with the concept that men can't shop for shit. This goes above and beyond. I mean, this is almost, it's got to be willful ignorance. He's doing this shit on purpose, right? It's just like either he's actually just extremely fucking dumb, or he thinks this shit is funny, or it's serving some other purpose. Like there's no it doesn't, I mean, because it doesn't benefit you to not ever like pick up on how to do something better. Like how are you going to complain? I don't ever get deals like that. And then when I try to explain to you how to fucking use the coupons and the reward points and the deals, you still can't comprehend what the hell is going on. Okay. Anyway, I started over. Oh, that's the end of that one anyway. Sorry. Same day. He leaves for the store, but comes back a few minutes later with the mail. I recognize the manila envelope as my stipend check from working the election. Opposite erections, he says, trying to be funny. Honestly, if it were anybody else, right? It's just because it's also a play on the whole L versus R for Asian. And he, at one point, he was half Japanese. At another point, he said he was half Chinese. So that's another thing that I'm like, dude can't even actually keep his fake identity straight. But I digress. I feel like there you go. There's a bonus nugget of information that I don't think I've mentioned before. Right. When around the time when we first met, he said that he was half Hawaiian, half Japanese. And then later on, he's like, oh, no, it's because I'm half Chinese. And I was like, I thought you said you were half Japanese. Okay, that's cool. With an Irish last name, by the way. He's half Hawaiian. And I've seen letters from the Department of Hawaiian Homeless like that have verified that he's at least 50% blood quantum. So it's like that part I've seen paperwork that verifies that's accurate. So allegedly like his father was full blood Hawaiian and his mom was either Japanese or Chinese. It's anybody's guess. Maybe she was actually Filipina. I don't have any idea. Um, but his last name is Irish. And so I remember asking, he's like, oh, because my mom was, like, whatever, and there was some kind of, but I still feel like cock and bull makes sense, right? Say it's a cock and bull story. Like, I don't know. It is what it is. I'm just saying. Okay. Oh, great, it's here, I exclaimed as I laid on the counter to my left near the stove. I was in the process of making tea and was filling the carafe with water from the sink. The stream of water was a good 4 feet away from where I placed the envelope. Careful, don't get that wet, he cried, lunging toward the envelope. I quickly picked it up. I'm not going to get it wet. He turned to head toward the door, saying that he still had to go to the store because he hadn't made it over there yet. It had only been 5 minutes since he left. Of course, he hadn't made it yet. I kicked my leg at him violently as he crossed the threshold. How fucking spastic would I have to be to get the stove wet from the sink? So if you're like, so typical kitchen setup, the stove is at one end, right? So there is a cabinet at one end, and then the stove, and then the countertop, which is probably about 4 feet of counter space, and then the single sink, and then like another 2 feet of counter space, and then the refrigerator, and then there's a small wall that then is like 6 feet-ish wide hallway kind of area where the front door is. Like I said, it would help. I'm going to just have to draw like a diagram of the apartment, and if anybody ever cares that much, it's like you can just check just look at the layout of the place, right? So when he handed it to me, and I'm making tea, the coffee maker is like as close to the sink on the counter as it can get, right? And so like when I say that, like I set it down to my left, it was like in the middle of the countertop space. Like I can't even imagine how uncoordinated I would have actually have had to have been to be making tea. So like I make tea in the coffee maker. I just put the tea bags into the coffee carafe and hang the tags over the side and like wrap them over the handle and then let the hot water brew over the tea bags. And by the time the water's done brewing, the tea is steeped. Boom, you're done. So anyway, like to fill the carafe with water in the sink and then pour the water into the coffee maker, how spastic would I have to be to get the envelope wet that is now like 3 feet from the fucking sink? It's just overbearing fucking ridiculousness, right? Am I soaking wet when I finish washing dishes? Is there a flood every morning when I make coffee? Like, what the fuck is this drama? He had done the same thing about a week earlier when I asked him to get flour and sugar while they were on sale for Thanksgiving. He came back from the store and put everything away except for those items, a box of Ritz crackers and a box of stovetop. I told him that I would put them away eventually when I was finished with what I was doing. I planned on putting them away before starting dinner. Put those away before they get wet, he said to me as he left about an hour later. I was sitting at my desk writing. I have no goddamn idea how or why they would get wet. Right, so a box of Ritz crackers, a box of stovetop stuffing, um, oh, flour. So a bag of flour, a bag of sugar, a box of Ritz crackers, and a box of stovetop stuffing are sitting on the aforementioned 4 foot wide like counter between the stove and the coffee maker. I don't know why he couldn't have just thrown them in the cabinet, but instead he left them on the counter and then instructed me to put them away before they get wet. How about you just put them away, right? Or like, why would they get wet? No one's using the sink. So, like I said, you take this as, Exhibit 17,000 that he was talking about something else. He was instructing me to do something in Fight Club, right? And I don't have any idea why. He just looks like a fucking jackass, right? Either put them away yourself or like don't put them away before they get wet. What? It's gonna start raining in here? Like, what is he talking about? And I feel like this is one of those things where it's like then when everything is said and done and everything gets explained like, oh, this is what was really going on. Like I'm still always going to be pissed off about this shit. Like you're not going to be able to explain to me like, oh yeah, because he thought that you were this person on Facebook playing this game with him and that he was actually telling you that he wanted you to remember to lead the raid on the pack of vandals, and I don't know, I'm just kind of make up some video game shit, right? Or whatever. Why wouldn't you just tell me what to fucking do? Right? Because then it starts making me wonder, like, so did he think that his apartment was under surveillance and that in order to talk to me about Fight Club, he would have to do this stuff covertly in order to communicate? So that's what that this is not some cute adventure or a fun challenge or whatever to be participating in. This is horrifying and strange and seems to involve quite a bit of stalking and perversion. and just being an utterly irritating bastard. But so, like I said, when it's all said and they're like, oh, like this is what was really going on. I don't give a fuck what was really going on with you crazy sons of bitches. Like I care. I have a right to know and I deserve to know the truth. But the idea that I'll, let bygones be bygones and forgive people and be like, oh my God, how cool. Woo, look, ah. Like, no, that's never gonna happen. This is fucking retarded. He asked for his eggs easy over instead of over easy. I have no idea how he ever came to say it this way, nor why he has never been corrected, either by other people or just from life experience in general. Every time he asks for his eggs cooked this way, I repeat the order back to him in the form of a question with the linguistic anomaly corrected. I feel like I've Googled this before too, and I came across stuff that was saying, oh, it's like either way, and that it's kind of like a regional dialectical thing. But then we're back to the problem of where would he have picked it up at, right? Like it's a little bit interesting. Anyway, I have done this several times to no avail. I know what they are, don't get me wrong, but I Googled easy over eggs anyway, and every single result just switched it to over easy eggs. Okay, what like I Googled the difference between sunny side up and over easy and found this definition of over easy on the kitchen. And that's not a typo, that's how the website's spelled. Over refers to flipping the egg, and easy refers to the doneness of the yolk. You can also cook eggs over medium and over hard, depending on how cooked you prefer the yolk. So you can't say that I don't know what I'm talking about, right? So anyway, so like I said, then I guess I misspoke. I like that if I had to try to force the Google search to keep it as easy over eggs, right? Dude is back with the street sweeper. He was just here like an hour and a half ago. What a waste. Huh, weird. Anyway, he does this with the word Wi-Fi as well. He pronounces it Wi-Fi instead of Wi-Fi. I would understand if he said Wi-Fi, but to call it Wi-Fi is just odd. We were outside in front of the building once, probably coming back from Safeway, when he stopped to talk to someone about something related to the internet. He said Wi-Fi, and one of the other residents of the building, someone about my age. Like I said, there was a handful of people in the building that were young, but obviously just developmentally and or intellectually disabled. Um, and so there was one that was kind of a younger dude um, who happened to be sitting outside. And when he said that, right, he got the what the actual fuck cringe look on his face. It's the look he often gets. No, scratch that. It's the look that I get from customer service people as a result of the bizarre things he says. It's probably coupled with the moment of clarity as to why I hang out with him, since most of them know me as the girl who used to work at the Safeway Starbucks. Right. So like there's a lot of, handful of people, whatever, like that don't necessarily realize like that I've always been in this situation, whatever. But yeah, I could still see the look on his face in my mind's eye, right? That he's oh, you've got to just double check that your Wi-Fi is connected right. And he just like did that like double take cringe face, like the fuck are you what? You the what now? So like, okay, I'm not crazy for having these knee-jerk reactions with him of just like that it's bizarre enough that people will need to fix their face. Right. It's like imagine living in a situation where you were constantly having to have these experiences where you had to make sure that you were keeping a straight face though and not reacting because he'll pick up on that real quick and fucking pop off at you. So you have to constantly just be pretending that like everything he says is sounds perfectly normal. Yeah. Okay, this thing is way too fucking sensitive. Holy shit. I wish there was a way to just, because I don't even want it to be on edit mode. I don't like, can I just close and reopen it and it'll be back on like, no, of course not. Okay, fine, whatever. After that incident, I decided to let him in on the secret. I told him how to pronounce it properly and did a mini intervention. I enlightened him to the fact that sometimes when he says things like that around people, they have an obvious negative reaction, and that while it's not a huge problem, it's not a good look. He's since been trying to break the Wi-Fi habit, but I don't think it even occurs to him that eggs are cooked over easy, not easy over. It will remain one of life's unsolvable petty mysteries. Right. So it's like if they, hey, let's have eggs for breakfast. How do you want them cooked? And he'd say like, oh, easy over. I'm like, oh, okay, two over easy eggs. And it never clicked to him that it's like it's not easy over. It's over easy. Even though that's what's printed on menus or like the way every fucking body else says it. Like I don't know where he ever would have picked up saying that backwards. But he never changed. And so, like I said, in the sense of the fight clubbing, right? What the hell is it with easy over eggs? I have no idea. Right. I want my eggs easy over. I don't have any idea what the fuck he thinks he's talking about. Right? It will remain one of life's unsolvable petty mysteries. Right? And it's like it's not necessarily unsolvable, right? It's like somebody someday could come and enlighten me to the fucking truth. But I'm still not going to understand why he just continually behaved this way. It's like if you wanted to be a stand-up comedian, but every time you told a joke, people just took it in normal conversation. Like you make sense, but you're not funny, right? That like after a while, wouldn't you start understanding that you're not funny because your quote unquote jokes don't land? Right? So it's obviously not because people aren't understanding you, right? Because the conversation can continue, but nobody ever laughs at anything you say. Right? Like me personally, a lot of times, like I have the opposite problem, right? Like I'll be talking, like stuff that I say is just funny. Like people laugh all the time, like, oh my God, you're so funny, but you're so right. I get a lot sometimes that like what's funny about it is just how on the nose it really is. And then sometimes just how like blunt I am and things like that, right? So like taking it from the opposite direction, right? That you make sense, people talk to you, you're involved in conversations, but no one ever laughs at anything you say. Then when you turn around and say, like, I'm always working on new stand up material, I try to work it into conversations all the time, and people that you talk to are like, really? Hmm, is that so? Oh, you sure about that? Like, I'd be like, did you know that motherfucker thinks he's a stand-up comedian, right? Motherfucker thinks he's funny. Be like, I mean, you could say, he's intelligent enough, like he says good, he makes good points. I've never found a single one of them funny, you know? Like that's what with him, that it's just like whatever he thinks he's doing, I don't understand why he was so committed to the bit. But okay. There are two dinner plates that we use every night. They are the same, both light green, oblong ceramic plates. When I cook, I use one of the plates as a spoon rest. I make my plate on the spoon rest plate and then his on the clean plate. Last night, he was a little late getting back from his shift being on duty in the building, during which there was a semi-major incident. One of the residents had gotten trapped in their room because the locking mechanism broke, rendering the door inoperable from either the inside or the outside. They were waiting on maintenance to come fix the door. This is only important because it made it the case that when he did come back to eat, everything was ready already. I was waiting for him to start dinner, so he ended up making his own plate first. So, like, I just kept everything warm on the stove, waiting for him to finally get back. So then when he finally got back, he just made his own plate first, right? Does that make sense? Okay. Preface this with the initial question of, okay, how does this work? As though he doesn't know how to identify the food items and pans on the stove. It was just pork chops, mashed potatoes, and green beans. Pretty straightforward, right? Or use a spoon. I answer by saying that the pork chops are in the skillet with the gravy. This is sufficient. He then, however, instead of using the clean plate from the dish drainer, grabs a small plate, crowds the utensils onto the small plate, washes the spoon rest plate, and proceeds to use it as his plate. I laugh and ask why he didn't just use the clean plate from the dish drainer. In his usual fashion, he claps back with this, "Oh, it's not a big deal," as he shrugs. This was kismetic, actually. I realized earlier that day that he does this, and that this is something that I should mention as being slightly out of range. He brushes off any evidence that would indicate that he's not that bright as not a big deal, when it's these sorts of details that show your ass, so to speak. So remember, even back to the night we met, right on the bus when he was following me around. And I was like, "What are you doing?" And he's just like, "Making sure you get back to town okay." And I said, "Why?" And he's like, "It's not a big deal." It's almost like it's that deflection of like it's a free country and I can do whatever the fuck I want. Like as a human being, I have a right to also change seats on the bus. As a human being, I also have a right to get off when you get off. As a human being, I have a right to walk up to you, sit down and start a conversation. But when the person you're doing that to finally turns around and asks you, "What the fuck are you doing?" The response isn't, "Oh, it's not a big deal." It's the response is, "Go away." Right? The response is walk away before I knock you out. Okay. So, like I said, anytime you would point out to him that, like, that thing you just did is kind of dumb or annoying, you just, oh, it's not a big deal. Like, you shouldn't get bent out of shape over this. Like, you get upset and bent out of shape over too much. When it's like, no, I think it's a little bit odd that you followed me onto the bus, followed me off the bus, talked my ear off about your own personal shit, don't understand anything people are saying, can't just have used the clean plate in the district. Like I said, like you don't have any kind of like just a recognition of efficiency. Because, like I said, I don't understand why there's a clean plate in the dish drainer why when you see the dirty plate on the counter, it's not even dirty, it's just like the spoon that I use to make the pork chop gravy with is resting on this plate. Why you would dirty another dish to move that, to wash it, to use it, so then I use the clean plate that was already in the dish drainer. Like most people of normal intelligence, the average and above intelligence, would have either just used the spoon rest plate or have just used the clean plate from the dish drainer. Or of the multitudes of times, right, that we've had dinner and there's only ever been, because he does the dishes, right? There's only ever been the two plates we eat off of dirty and then the cooking dishes, right? It doesn't occur to you that one of us has just been using the spoon rest plate. I don't, I mean, I like, am I just an over observant person or what? But like, I watched him do this in just awe of how inefficiently fucking dumb it was. Right. And I feel like I said, I was like, but it's not a big deal. You've got to pick your battles. If I actually liked the individual for some other reason, right? Remember when I said it was like, I would start thinking of things that like, if I had seen like my brother or my one of my parents or like a friend or a roommate or something, any other situation, and I'd seen them do that, how would I handle the situation? And I handled it exactly like I would for anybody else. I would point it out. Why didn't you just use the clean plate in the dish drainer? Right? I'll call you out on that shit. Now, the thing is, too, you might say that it's like that's why people don't like you very much. I don't care if that is something that you would not like someone for doing, like pointing out that you're like inefficient and like, or that thing that you just did was kind of weirdly stupid. Um, First of all, I don't care if you don't like me because if you're the kind of person who acts like your inefficient stupidity is going to bleed over into making everything like take longer or be more complicated. So I don't have an interest in you being around me any fucking way. If something, it's like if it's not a big deal, then pointing it out to you should equally not be a big deal, right? So it's like if you're doing it, right? And you didn't really think about it that way, right? That it's like you just really overcomplicated that process. Right. There was a time, okay, I'll tell this story. It's so funny because when I was working at Panera and I worked in the bakery slash barista area making drinks, and there was a day like somebody had ordered a smoothie and for some reason like it was a little thicker than usual and so it wasn't quite coming out of the blender that fast, and my coworker handed me a spoon and she's like, "Here, even monkeys use tools." I just laughed. I thought it was funny, right? That's the sort of thing that would piss off a lot of other people, right? Because I was just kind of like tapping the side of the blender, trying to get it to move. And then she's like, "Here, use a spoon. Even monkeys use tools." So it's like, but if I even just like friendly, like if this were this situation with him, right, and this roles were reversed, just handing him the spoon would have had him being like, "Oh, it's not a big deal," as he would just continue tapping on the blender. right? Where it's like, I don't have any interest in someone like that being in my space. I don't care that you don't like me. Cool. I don't like you either. Get the fuck away from me. So, like, it just doesn't compute, right? That for some reason, I feel like too, throughout my life, a lot of times too, I get this like feedback, like, well, people don't really take kindly to being corrected. I don't take kindly to having to correct everyone around me. I feel very Scott Spice in that moment again, right? That's like I don't take kindly to having to correct people for overcomplicating simple tasks. Okay. Anyway, yeah, I guess I could have done that as one laughs. It is a more typical response in this sort of situation from someone who is mature, self-aware, and honest. My use of honest here is a little convoluted, but I'll leave the reader to ascertain what I mean. Right? So it's just like be honest with yourself. Like I said, in the situation when she handed it to me, it was like, even monkeys use tools. It's like, she's right. That it should have been like immediately, if I just use a spoon to spoon it out. My thing is like, because when I'm at home doing so, I don't like having to wash extra dishes. Like, I'd rather, like, hey, eventually it's going to melt enough to just slide out of the blender, and I won't do that. But in a situation where you're working and someone is expecting you to hand them the drink so that they can move on, just use the spoon, right? So anywho, so like I said, that it's like just be honest with yourself and understand, right? Coming to that under like, why didn't I just grab the spoon? And it's like because I wouldn't dirty an extra dish if I were at home doing this for myself. Oh, okay, cool. You, you know what I mean? So it's like just this is how you learn about yourself is then asking like, yeah, why did I do that in like the stupidest way possible? Writing off obvious dunce moves like this as though they are not a big deal is a form of low-level gaslighting. It's a narcissist's attempt to save face by attempting to make you feel petty. What they don't realize is that it's exactly these sorts of interactions that provide details about themselves. So, like, for instance, he has an obvious lack of ability when it comes to being efficient, for example, that lead them to, let's say, not come to mind for certain tasks, endeavors, or even casual outings. As is often said, it's the little things that make the biggest differences. Right? So it's like that as people kind of figure out more and more about you, right? They realize that, you know, like asking so and so to help with this would actually probably just make the work harder because they have a tendency to overcomplicate simple tasks. So let's just not ask them to help with this. Right, that's sort of a thing. And so then when they start wondering like nobody ever wants me to be a part of their blah 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 or this and this and that. And then the narcissist ends up developing this depression and anxiety, and that's why they ultimately seek therapy. Then when they go to therapy and they're telling the therapist the things that were going on that caused them to feel the anxiety or depression that caused them to seek therapy, the therapist or like any other reasonable person listening to them describe the events is able to piece together that there's there's a reason that like people aren't inviting them to do things or not wanting them to be a part of like helping them do stuff or this, that, and the other, right? That, oh, okay, so you must be more trouble than you're worth, right? That's the situation, right? But if you never wanted to help these people with this thing anyway, you would never notice that you weren't ever being asked to help. You'd be relieved by it, right? And so that it just never gets exposed. Yeah. So anyway, that's the end of this first little pseudo bite-sized nugget. I feel like that was ended up going on 30 minutes. Jesus Christ, I'm a long-winded bitch. I got a lot to say. But like I said, these are my therapy sessions for this. I was thinking about this morning too. I think I may have mentioned this before at some point. I don't know, but at the same time, I feel like I need to stop prefacing with that because either I have or I haven't. I'm still going to mention it again anyway. But anyway, um, when I was in college and my doing my undergrad, and this I think was before I was even a psych major. I'm pretty sure this was my freshman year. They did a study that they actually paid people to participate in, and it was they had us go in first, and we did like all of the like basic psychological evaluations for things like depression and anxiety and like personality disorders and blah 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 blah, right? And then they had us journal for like 30 minutes where they were just like, tell us about your life, your struggles, things that how you've liked and didn't like, like just kind of like just type about your life up to this point for 30 minutes. And then they had us, and it kind of like, especially with a focus on like stuff that's been like negative things that have happened to you in your life, et cetera, et cetera. And then we came back like another 2 or 3 times over the course of the semester to do this same 30 minutes of journaling. And then at the end of the semester, we went through all of the psychological batteries again. And the study was to try to find out if whether or not just journaling was as effective or at least somewhat effective as going to therapy. And that what they've found, I might actually, because I'm about to head to the library anyway, see if I can dig up some of this research on, excuse me, just whether or not for instance, just even journaling, or at the very least, just talking to anybody about things that have been your negative experiences and traumas and things that you've been through. So, as I know I've mentioned before, like these are my own self therapy sessions. But I learned that this would be an effective form of therapy way back as an undergrad in psychology. Um, so, yeah, I see a lot of people have corgis here. Anyway, I do walk by with his corgi. There's at least there's three over by the Whole Foods. There's two with the yellow corgis and one has a black corgi. Because I kept thinking that the one yellow corgi was the same dog, it just being walked by two different people until I think it was yesterday morning. It went by like twice in like 5 minutes. Like, I know you haven't made it around the block already. I started paying attention. It's like, what the heck? Okay, anyway, but my point being, this is actually more for me than it is anyone else in the audience, which is why, even though I have the comments on, I have the hold all comments, because it's not because I don't want to post it's not because I don't want to post certain content. It's actually because I don't want to miss any of them, at least in this stage of the game. I would be interested in addressing everybody, and I don't want something to get lost in just the list of comments that appear. Or like too, sometimes like things get really popular out of nowhere for like no apparent reason. So it's like I don't want to wake up one day and one of these videos has like hundreds of comments and then I can't like necessarily keep track of where they're at because I feel like these things the algorithms are all always set to like determine what are the most popular or the most relevant and stuff, and then things are constantly moving and like things get buried, or the algorithm will think that something's not relevant, but it's actually like the most. I've noticed this on just like reading through comments on Facebook or Twitter and stuff like that, right? Where it'll be like, oh, like most relevant is selected, so things that aren't relevant have been filtered out. But when I go to like to just put them all in order, the stuff that it's filtered out is the better comments than the stuff it thought was the most relevant. It thinks that most relevant is just the stuff that's had the most interactions and stuff. You know what I mean? So anyway, that's a whole like soapbox ramble about that. But that's like I said, the reason that comments are on, but they're all held for moderation is just because I want to make sure that I see them all so that I can actually respond or address or like just because I'm interested in seeing what other people have to say. Um, but at the same time, it's because I guess this is good to put this here too, because if this is, I would have imagined that the spades version of this is going to be more popular anyway. So if this is going to be the first spades episode, then it makes sense to just get this all out there and off my chest to begin with. Right. So like I said, like the reason that the comments are held is just because I want to make sure that I've read all of them. And but at the end of the day too, like whether your comment is like positive or negative, I don't want to sound like an asshole saying this, but I really don't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just because I'm doing this more for me and than I am for the audience. I just think that if I'm going to do this, I should do something else with it just to not like be yelling into the void. I also think that there might be good information here for a lot of other people. If people go through situations like this or know people like this, or just like that people can commiserate, or maybe some people can think like maybe there will be some insights to one's own self that it's just like, oh shit, like I do that. Like every time somebody gives me even the slightest bit of negative criticism, I try to just blow them off. Like, Oh shit, yeah, I bet that is kind of irritating. You know what I'm saying? Like that's why I feel like it makes sense to do this and actually put it out there. Um, there's no weird ulterior motive or like any, it's just, hey, this is the shit that happened to me. This is how I felt about it. This is like what the fuck. And if you don't enjoy it, then quit listening to it. I, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. Um, but it is what it is. So, on all of those notes, I will talk to y'all in the next one. Bye.